No real surprise. I feel like Jensen has had some pretty solid performances, not only at home in the North American LCS, but here at Rift Rivals, really dismantling Fnatic yesterday in their first game, and a lot of focus being to try and take away some of these comfort picks from the side of C9.
And LeBlanc in general is such a big pick in North America. It's something that doesn't have as much priority in Europe. So that's, I think, one of the adaptations some of these teams are going to be making. You know, start to attack the picks and bans teams from that region would, because you want to take away what people are really comfortable on.
It's like they were talking to Bjergsen yesterday, saying how adapting each region going to have to figure this out day by day, and that's how it's going to swing the results. So we'll see if it ends up being the way for G2 as they ban out the Elise.
And I'm curious about how much focus there's going to be onto Gragas right now, because we have seen over the last 2 days, well, today included, that it has become a more staple pick right now. A lot of teams have put a lot of early value on it, especially with the Cinderhulk changes that we have seen for him in the jungle.
Well, excellent prediction there, Vedius, as it gets locked in first over on side of Cloud9 now. We'll see what they end up choosing first with handful of mid laners banned away. Jensen will be moving somewhere different, but I don't expect him to pick it up in this first rotation.
I mean, certainly could be looking at something like Thresh for Smoothie. It is a very strong pick for him, and it's one that's extremely popular right now. If you want to go for something like Orianna, that does make sense, as they've already taken Syndra off the table. One of the matchups that are considered pretty difficult for Orianna.
I think you're also looking at Elise in here for Contractz as well. He did bring it out early on in the day. He had a lot of early game success with it. Snowballing Jensen once again in the mid lane that we often see from him. And it usually does pretty well into the Gragas fairly early on, because in terms of early pressure, there's very little that the Gragas can do to match it. And I think that it would just be a fairly safe blind pick should C9 choose to go for it.
Yeah, but at the last second, they are going to go ahead and lock in the Kha'Zix. So still has a lot of potential to make those big plays, but what they've given up here is this Thresh, and G2 might pick that one up for Mithy.
Yeah, and if they do go with that, I mean, Kha'Zix is kind of considered a pretty good matchup specifically into Gragas. Some players do like to actually play that, so Contractz is going to opt for this specific jungle matchup. We do see that Tahm Kench, Braum, these sorts of support picks are still available, so you know, if the Thresh is locked in here, I am going to expect that Smoothie will make his response in this first round of picks. That being said, you will leave yourself open to being more targeted, you know, in the AD carry and top lane role.
Yeah, and something that we have seen Smoothie bring out as well was champions like the Bard too. So if they choose to save it, I wonder whether or not he does go for something a little bit more unique with the playmaking opportunities that they have in the bottom lane. But in terms of what G2 pick, I wouldn't be surprised if they go for something like a Renekton right now. I know that Gnar has been on the rise, but you guarantee a solid top half of the map. And, I don't think that was a lock-in. I have a feeling that was random. Yeah. Don't get excited.
Yeah. All right.
Over the player, it seems like there's a little bit of a panic going on over there. So.
Yeah, not the only ones. All right, so I'm hearing that PerkZ wasn't able to pick something. So when in doubt, of course, it's going to default over to the Draven, but he'll get the remake of the picks and bans. So we won't be seeing that one.
That does happen from time to time. There'll be a very quick remake. I imagine that it will be exactly the same draft. Players, I imagine, won't be allowed to talk either, and you go back to exactly what
it has to be same picks and bans up to that point, so you can't have an advantage just from getting that remake. We will see which way they decide to go, as we should be able to be hopping back into this pretty quick.
But so far we've seen nothing too unconventional.
No,
the fact that Gragas has been rising in popularity this tournament is no real surprise. I think that it's taken a little while for teams to identify his value that he is providing for a lot of, in terms of the engage, in terms of his jungle clear, and the fact that he can be flexed into both top jungle and even support.
And I think that the flex pick is what makes it so powerful, right? Because it's very hard to target picks and bans. You know, if you think, okay, it's going top and you start banning out a top laner, then they're simply going to put it top, pick a jungler in the second round. So you always are going to have an advantage in picks and bans with these flex picks, and that's why they're historically some of the most powerful and best early blind picks.
And the fact that we've seen LeBlanc already banned away with the Syndra means that you've guaranteed a powerful laner with the Orianna for Jensen as well. And we've seen from Cloud9 that they do rely on Jensen getting that early lead. They often play around him during the early game to set up nicely for those later game team fights. And I think that getting that positive matchup is a great thing for him.
We also heard on the desk how they're expecting this to be a long game. And if you're looking at a long game, Orianna, if you want to get sneaky onto a late game carry, that offers additional protection. If you're going to draft another defensive support there too, so that all would synergize very well.
And I'm thinking, like, as an answer, perhaps PerkZ could look at something like a Talia if you wanted to. The roaming power that you do have is pretty potent, and he has brought out in the past during the regular season as well. So I don't think it would be too surprising if you went for something like that.
No, and I think that makes a lot of sense too, because PerkZ has not had the best laning phase pretty much at all during the summer split in the European LCS, and it's continued here at Rift Rivals. So you'd expect him to be put on something a little bit safer if that is what he's allowed to do. Alternatively,
One of the options that we do see in NA a fair bit is Ahri as a matchup into the Orianna can be actually a pretty strong answer there. That's one of the other kind of pretty safe mid lane picks and someone that does have pretty strong 1v1 potential.
I think it's a great pick into the Orianna. I completely agree with you. The problem with EU mid laners is they have this tendency to be like, they see a champion nerfed and they go, oh no, can't play a useless champ,
Until someone brings it out and bodies them.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Like,
Unless it's Rise, apparently.
Unless it's
40% win rate, still getting played. No idea
mostly
why.
by Azael. I just got to scratch that one off. All right, yeah, so we do have all the same picks and bans up into the not actual Draven picks, so that'll just keep rolling through.
It would be funny if he then locked in Draven and they decided it was in fact a good pick after all. But I don't think it will be. As we were discussing, I think that they could go for their top laner right now. Something that they try to do is guarantee expect something that he can have a successful laning phase on. And by going for the Renekton, they would guarantee a pretty strong duo in the top and jungle. Or they just keep this Gragas as a flex and they save the top pick for a later on in the draft.
Gonna wait till the last couple seconds to lock in the Thresh, and we'll see what the answer is now. If it is to the Orianna or if they go up towards the top side for expect. He has played a number of Renekton games even here, and his impact has been a little bit limited, in all honesty.
Bit of a throwback to the Azael that he did say he was going to pick.
You were still waiting on that one,
I'm still waiting on it. Still waiting on it.
I remember that picks to watch.
But for the time being, instead they're just going to focus down the bottom lane.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. Also, as a takeaway from Sneaky, Sneaky has been very successful on this pick, and in general, Tristana has been crushing it in the NA LCS. It has a well over 70% win rate at this point, so that is a really big power pick.
Yeah, right up the alley of what Zven wants to do anyways. He's been picking the Kog'Maw. He's liking himself the hyper carries these days. Now Cloud9 a couple more seconds, and it looks like they're getting ready to lock in the Blitzcrank.
That is a bit surprising to me, especially into the Tristana. We actually got to see this showcased yesterday from the opposite side, how well Tristana can actually get away from the rocket grab. If you actually time your jump on Tristana well, it essentially negates it completely, and we saw Mithy really struggle to actually deal with that against Sneaky. Yes, he did have a couple really big picks that did turn around the game, but generally it's considered a tough matchup, and with things like Tahm Kench and Braum, that would have been kind of a safer option. That being said, Smoothie can utilize this in other ways. Roaming, as we saw them have great effect on the Blitzcrank, with Lee Sin and coming to mid lane as well and kind of camping for Jensen.
And it's just something that we've been seeing a lot more of recently. The Unicorns were a team that were doing it a lot during the regular season where they would just actively pick the Blitzcrank into the Thresh. And I feel like during the laning phase, you often lose out in terms of pressure because yes, you have the pick power, but you really don't have the same level of push. But the real value of Blitzcrank, I feel, comes later on when you have your ultimate available, the different itemization that he can go from, and the fact that he is just pretty tanky and he always has that threat that you always have to be respectful of.
Right, there's a definite potential for wombo combo between the Orianna and the Kha'Zix already, so throw in the Blitzcrank there and you can just kind of pull people in, get the deletion on, see what you can do.
Another thing that it really can make you second guess is, hey, like what mid lane pick do you want to take? If you're taking someone that's relatively low mobility, you can be picked on not only in roaming, but in team fighting, right? So banning away the Ahri, banning away the Corki, two of the more mobile mid lane picks that are left there for PerkZ means that he's going to be kind of pigeonholed even more because he has to deal with the Blitzcrank and perhaps even the Ashe.
I wonder if he just goes back on the Lucian. It's something that he picked up quite a bit in the last couple of weeks in the European LCS and kind of just was holding lane with it.
It is something you can do, but with top lane not having being drafted and almost pure physical damage at this point, that could pigeonhole them quite a bit.
And with the Camille ban, I feel like the G2 may be edging towards a Rumble pick in the top lane.
Oh, okay. The gauntlet's been thrown now for PerkZ.
But
that's a nice little throwback.
There's the Rumble pick that we were talking about. So this will guarantee that the Gragas goes into the jungle. If you're Cloud9 now, you're kind of limited in your options. You could potentially go for a Fiora with the Jarvan gone away and Gragas taken off the board. I feel like Kled would be the next best answer for the Rumble.
Yeah, Kled makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that is a very good matchup into the Rumble. You can all in him very heavily. You're already drafting some very powerful engage here. You give a way in for the Blitzcrank, for this Kha'Zix. You have the Ashe arrow here as well. So I definitely think that Rumble could be a point of contention where they're going to try to target him. They're going to try to bring their jungler up and get the Kled ahead, because if the Kled is ahead of a Rumble, it's very difficult to stay alive. It's so easy to repeatedly dive you.
And I'm looking at this composition from Cloud9, and to me it's like, it's very It's very classic Cloud9. Like, this team is going to scale up. Like, they have the option to make a few ganks happen in the early game, but the mid to late game, they have so many engaged tools with the Ashe arrow, the Kled ultimate. You also have the thread of a Blitzcrank hook, so many ball delivery system with the Kha'Zix too. This team, so good at being able to team fight later on to the stages. And what we've seen throughout this tournament is that C9 are a team that is very effective at finding that opportune fight.
I do agree, but I also think that G2, you know, this is a composition that can also team fight, and you can deal for 1-4 type split push styles with a Zed, but their 4-man squad is extremely powerful in the team fight with the Gragas frontline, Thresh frontline. You have the Rumble for that AoE damage, and you protect this Tristana. Zven is extremely adept at this pick. We've seen him, you know, play it internationally many times before and have great success.
Absolutely, but G2 are going to need to try and get that Zed rolling if they want to make the side lane pressure count. Otherwise, they'll have to rely on the power that Zven can bring out on the front line that they can get from their top laner. And C9, they know when games go long, they're in their comfort zone. The last match between these two yesterday, 48 minutes and 37 seconds. It was a long one, it was drawn out, and it was certainly not clean. But we will find out what happens in round 2 between G2 eSports and Cloud9 as they load up onto the Summoner's Rift.
Cloud is definitely
excited.
Yeah, he is. We always have one guy. We always have one guy in the audience that he's always just super keen.
There's a little piece of that guy in everybody.
Yeah,
it's a different guy too, right? Like
it's
sometimes
always,
it's for different teams. You have a different person, and now you've got the entire audience
There you go.
chanting TSM and stuff, but not this game. So you got, there, I shouldn't have baited him.
So let's talk a little bit about this mid lane matchup, because it is PerkZ versus Jensen. He is on Zed against Orianna, and picking an assassin into an Orianna lane, like in the early game, you're going to struggle. You do not have a reliable way to get close to the minions, because Orianna's always going to hit you with a basic attack. She's going to zone you with the Q, and early levels, she is a big threat. But the moment PerkZ hits that level 6 mark, once he's got a bit of damage under his kit, he's going to build a lot of long swords, is what you can expect. That is where he becomes a real threat towards the Orianna. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is the fact that there is no exhaust on the side of C9 to shut down this Zed later on into the game.
And I'll also say, you know, in combination with the Gragas, right? Like, we already know about the body slam flash, how powerful that is as a gank. If you bring a level 6 Gragas to a lane with a level 6 Zed, it's very, very difficult for anyone to be able to escape that if someone is already not there preemptively to support you.
Yeah, and we saw what happened to Caps when he did not have his flash yesterday on Orianna, how easy it is to just repeat these ganks over and over. So I'd love to see some early investment or repeated investment from Trick in the middle lane.
Although we have to expect that C9 are going to try to match that investment as well. This is how Cloud9 wins their games. They rally around Jensen every phase of it.
And if PerkZ is ever using his shadow aggressively in the mid lane here, that's something that can really be capitalized on by Contractz and by Smoothie, who are going to be looking for this roam.
Does spamming your taunt with your shadow count as aggression?
It's a different kind of aggression.
There we go. I think it's also what we did notice in the draft as well was the hover of Azir and Rise from Jensen. I can definitely feel like there's an element of banter between these two mid laners, but I'm sure it's all in good fun. As
I think it goes something like, what is it?
I don't remember that. I don't remember
I don't remember, actually.
But what I do know is that PerkZ is a very good Zed player, and once he first came into the European LCS, he was well renowned for these assassin picks, and given the change in meta and his development as an individual, he's more steered away from them, but now he's trying to demonstrate something today.
And this is a really exciting matchup for me, just as individuals, because, you know, the lane kingdom, so much talk about PerkZ and his dominance in the 1v1 lane, you know, having great results against Faker in the 1v1s at MSI. Jensen has been, in my opinion, the most lane dominant mid laner in North America for a long time, and this guy is actually crushing it this split and crushing it this tournament, I think, in the 1v1. So seeing these two guys go at it is going to be very, very exciting.
Absolutely, but PerkZ still has something to prove, right? Because he hasn't had the best summer split thus far, but we haven't seen him on a pick like the Zed. But we'll talk about that a little bit later, because Trick is on his way up to the top, and Ray is out one Cowardly Lizard. Expect with the bait on, and in comes the Fat Man Flash Body Slam, and Ray is in trouble. He has to burn his own flash. Still gets hit by the barrel, and with the Electro Harpoon, that's first blood.
That was a beautiful predict from Trick. He expected Ray to flash away. He threw the barrel in advance, knowing where he would go towards, gets the extra bit of damage down to enable Expect to get the kill.
And while that can look pretty funny and Ray trading that aggressively, that's one of the things that you really can do on Kled. If you trade out your passive, you get the remount, you can whittle people down, and had the gank not come in, he could have started to actually take control of that lane as he gets the remount. So it was a very well-timed gank by Trick.
Contractz just taking a little bit of jungle as a consolation prize as it all happens. Smoothie trying to move on into the jungle as well. The bottom side, obviously when you're on a Tristana pick, you're going to get way outranged by an Ashe, so could be a little trouble for Zven to start things off. And you can see that CS differential pretty big already.
And here's the gank again. It's well set up. So this is Ray. He's trying to trade out his dismount, so he's going to be able to pull him back in, and then you're able to get the remount. And I mean, look how low Kled is, but Rumble is going to be punished more heavily from
And
this.
just watch the barrel here, because what he's expecting is for Trick to just throw the barrel in front of him, but Trick reads the flash play in advance and is able to get the kill and the extra damage needed to secure it. But bear in mind, like, the other thing to note is that Ray was also a level up onto Expect as well, so trying to abuse that level advantage is definitely a very common thing that you do as a top player.
It's so big, too, that Expect is actually the one that picks up this kill, because one of the common builds you'll see is a rush on Tabbies and a Seekers into these physical damage auto attacker matchups, and it makes it so hard for the Kled to ever really be able to punish that person in the early game until you start getting completed items.
Absolutely. Checking back in with the mid once again. It's been a little quiet. As expected, PerkZ is struggling a little bit in the farm, but he's been able to snatch a bit back here and there. So he sends out some Shadow Shurikens and has a little bit of fun with this one. Checking into Contractz too, as he might be running into Trick.
It's such an annoying mid lane matchup as a Zed. You just have to accept the fact that you are going to fall behind in the laning phase, and you just have to do your best to try and mitigate it as much as possible. But Jensen really demonstrating his dominance and understanding of the matchup.
And they did spot Trick, I believe, walking across there. They had a ward over by the blue buff, so they should know that Trick is up here. We'll see if Contractz actually comes up for the counter gank to try to defend this. But for now, I think that Ray should be fine under turret.
No, he's going to be okay. Just pushed under for just a moment. You could see that they weren't falling for the lantern bait down on the bottom side. Sneaky and Smoothie were wise to the fact that Trick was waiting in the wings up there.
Trick is being very patient, though, and if Ray goes much further forward, they could look for this play. I mean, this is not a level 6 Gragas or anything, but still, Ray is going to have to be careful.
He doesn't get anything, though. He just hits 5.
He is wasting a lot of time up here.
He is. He's stealing a lot of experience away from Expect, too. Bear in mind that getting that early kill will give him that slight experience advantage over Ray, but now that level 6 is going to be delayed, but they are committed to trying to snowball Expect.
All right, so Expect is almost level 6. They're actually committing to wait for the level 6 now, I feel like, at this point. A couple more minions and he will get it. They're going to go now.
Oh, right on the body slam. Instant equalizer. Off goes Skarl, but they don't have the damage to finish him this time.
Oh.
Flashing forward. Expect he wants this. Charbroiling down.
Expect
Ray
is gonna
doesn't
die.
fall,
Oh my-
but Expect trades his life.
That was such a big investment of time from Trick, and it ends up being a 1-for-1 from Ray. He was able to get a return kill because of the amount of time that he spent underneath that tower, but here we can see the gank again.
I mean, they waited so long, they decide they want to wait it all the way out for the Rumble level 6, and as soon as he hits it, they do go.
And you can just see, right, so here, there's a bit of a communication breakdown because Trick wants to disengage, but Expect goes under. And I feel like at this point, you just keep walking forward. Just walk away from the tower, try and get out of range. But he just walks back and forth, and he just stays under the tower for even longer than he needs to.
Oh,
Jensen.
level 6 is on the board. It's Deathmark now as Jensen trying to dodge 2-step away from the arrested PerkZ damage, and he does most of it.
So you do get the barrier out from Jensen, which will make it a little bit easier when he wants to try and utilize that ultimate again. But for the time being, pressure is still an advantage of Jensen.
Yeah, and Jensen, you know, nice sidestep on the Shurikens. He is going to be able to play very aggressively, knowing that that ultimate is down for quite some time. So he's going to look to extend this CS advantage, and Contractz has gotten into the jungle. So much time was spent topside. He could lie in wait for Trick, and with the Evolve's Q it looked like he took, the dueling would certainly go very heavily in Contract's favor in a 1v1 against Trick.
But now Trick knows where Contractz is because of that ward sitting down there. Unfortunately, can't do too much about it. And it looks like Trick is going to give up where his position is as well, but he belly bops in onto Contractz, smiting down on that last Raptor for a little help. PerkZ trying to give some assist as
Orianna's
he barrels
coming
backwards. So is the Orianna. And that ball is going to be dodged away. Do not want.
Yeah, they get the flash for the Ignite, but it's also a flash used by PerkZ to actually get in range there. So PerkZ down 2 summoners, and the camp goes over to Contractz. Still a positive trade there for Cloud9. It does work out.
I was surprised that PerkZ would invest his flash into that. The only reason why I would imagine he did that is because he already used his shadow in the lane, which means that it was on cooldown and unavailable.
And if he gets his auto attack off with his passive, he probably gets the kill there.
That's
because you have
true,
the bonus damage. Contractz was very low, so he was looking for that surprising play. We do have Contractz down here. They're looking for the play now.
Ashe right on to Zven. He's got both his phones, but he
nice
is
hook.
going nowhere. Hooked right back into Contractz kill.
Smoothie, he waits for the jump to come out so that he can guarantee the CC. The chain was set up so beautifully with the arrow, followed by the jump from Contractz, the silence into the hook. fantastic setup from C9 to get themselves a kill down in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and that's why Smoothie starts it out with the flash punch, to ensure everything else is going to hit, to ensure that Zven has no chance to get away.
Oh yeah, and for Zven, he had a fantastic game against Cloud9 yesterday, but he's already on the same death count. A little bit more frustrating this time as he's taken the Orianna. Remember, he was on the Azael last time around up against the Trist.
And right now, C9, they have the early advantage, largely just because of the CS advantages that they have in mid and in the bottom lane, along with all of the jungle camps the Contractz have been able to steal while Trick has been trying to gank for Expect up in the top lane. So things definitely looking promising for C9, but remember, their whole game plan is about the later stages of the game. They have this great team fight. They have so many ways to engage as PerkZ may have found Jensen.
Looking for him, goes in, Death Mark, and Shockwave trying to deter him a little further, but in comes Smoothie to push back PerkZ and Trick.
Really well timed Shockwave there by Jensen, just pulling PerkZ off of him after the Death Mark so he can actually follow up that damage at all. And one thing definitely going really well, I'd say, for G2 is they have kept Ray down a fair bit, right? You want to be able to have whoever's going to be in the side lane at the point where they can 1v1 him. And if PerkZ is getting bullied, you need to keep Ray down as well, because PerkZ is going to be the one who wants to get to that side lane and is going to have to deal with the Kled. Yeah,
I agree with you. By just having that advantage in the 1 versus 1, it means you always have the option, if you're G2, to be able to utilize the 1-for-1 over C9. And as I said, you would typically expect him to have a pretty big favor when going off into the side lane and challenging people in those 1v1 duels.
A little bit of a goal deficit for G2, but they definitely have that going for them. Remember, they did just come off a pretty frustrating loss against Phoenix 1. You want to be able to try and bounce back. As a 1-2 record, certainly not what you want to have in your second match on day 2. Now Mithy and Zven have swapped up to the top side, trying to get that quick tower.
And they're going to get this turret really uncontested. So Kled is in the mid lane. They're going to try to dive mid with C9 and make that their response. We'll see if they can pull this off, because they have not rotated anyone around.
They can't expect here, and Ray is already looking to cut off PerkZ. It looks like that Rumble's going down, but let's see what Trick can do. He gets the separation, but Jensen is healthy enough.
Yeah, C9 had to force a play there because Rumble went bot, ulted out the wave bot, so they were always going to win that turret trade top, but Zven is just going to continue pushing. There's still a wave up there. Someone from C9 needs to get top. They can't afford to just give over 2 turrets.
Zven taking a leaf out of Reckless Book, just keeps on the split push right now, but doesn't get any damage of his own onto the top side. Unfortunately, Sneaky for C9 couldn't actually get the tower down bot.
The thing is, for Expect, though, I feel like he was the big part that went in C9's favor right there, because they will eventually be able to get this bottom tower because there is no answer from G2. You can see that with the minion wave coming in, Sneaky can secure this now, and C9 are able to get a kill as well. So while it is very favorable for G2 in the sense that they were able to get the first tower, it is still C9's gold advantage thanks to that additional kill that they were able to gain in the mid lane, as Smoothie looks for another advantage in mid.
Overdriving forward, but PerkZ was wise to it. He doesn't have flash, but he is still stealthy enough to move out of harm's way as we get into 12 minutes on the game. Mithy going to get some sight on Contractz, throws the hook out. He's got some assistance from Trick,
Smoothie's here too, though.
Up on the arrow. Smoothie trying to come in. Once again, it's all over the place, that Blitzcrank.
So the idea of the play is actually just to get some pressure and vision down into the bottom half of C9's jungle, because the goal is to get this tier 1 in the bottom lane. They know that with Zven on Tristana at this point in the game, she's still very good at taking down these towers, but trying to get close to the tower with the risk of Blitzcrank is always something you have to be mindful of, especially with Contractz always hanging around and trying to set up ganks. So getting deep vision and having that additional pressure makes taking that objective much easier.
Ray going to take his spot back up towards the top side, and it looks like settle down for just a moment. Have been a lot of back and forth plays, a few attempts here. 1-to-1 on the tower game, but as you said, it is C9's gold game at the moment.
And they did actually spot Trick out on the bot side jungle, so Contractz moving up to the top. Kled will have his ultimate back pretty soon. This is no Zhonya's yet completed on the Rumble, so that is someone that you could try to dive in this situation. We'll see if they want to go for it. It can be risky against a Rumble who's pretty strong with that equalizer.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's always something that you never properly respect sometimes, because you think that equalizer damage is a lot. Even at early levels, but then to add to the fact that there's a tower hitting on you, the slow from the equalizer as well, like there's so much that you always have to respect, that there's always a big gamble unless you have 2 or 3 members that can change that aggro between them.
Well, still settled in for just a second. We talk about PerkZ on the side lanes, but he looks like he's going to go roaming first. Still just sitting on his Yomus. Still waiting for him to get up to higher item spikes, but with the Orianna in that mid, it's going to be hard for him to get that tower without any assistance.
And it's important to remember as well what this means for G2 as a team, because so far in this tournament they're sitting at 1 and 2. Expectations were that right now in the European LCS they're not having the best of performances. A lot of the fans and the community were like, we don't actually have massive expectations of G2 because they're not looking the best right now. But on themselves, they feel like they should be performing so much better than they currently are. Remember, like, they made it all the way to the finals at MSI. Like, their international redemption began earlier on this year, and this is the first step towards that. While Lizzo only North America, within themselves, they had higher expectations of themselves.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And all you have to do is go back and watch Mithy's interview to see how disappointed they are in their own performance. They need to be able to pick up the pace a little bit. And the last time they met Cloud9, it was very difficult just for them to close it out. Game went almost to 50 minutes, but for the time being, they're keeping it close, and they do have the ability to fight it out in this mid game. That's what we're looking for.
And the game definitely has slowed down. As the analyst has predicted, very much what we expected. Both teams looking to get towards that later stage of the game. C9 with this fantastic team fight composition, something that they have a lot of experience with and what they've had a lot of success with over in North America, along with the fact that G2, they have team fighting capabilities, especially with the Tristana and the Rumble, but they also have the Z in their pocket, which does make the composition a little harder to play because his positioning and ability to flank will be key, but also they always have that side lane threat that they can rely on later on.
And I mean, you kind of have to look down the line at all the picks, right? So while C9 does have some very powerful team fight, when you look at a Blitz versus a Thresh, you know, most people would say the Thresh is probably more useful in that team fight. And Kha'Zix versus a Gragas, right? The Gragas is probably more useful. So I don't think it's as one-sided as we're perhaps, you know, talking about it now. I definitely think that G2 can win the team fight. Zed, you know, certainly is hard to team fight on, but you can join those team fights, especially if you do get ahead. You know, putting threat on someone like an Ashe can just be enough to zone him out of the fight, and you can win through doing things like that.
Absolutely, and if you can get a catch onto somebody, I mean, Ashe is the pretty obvious target, being one of the squishiest members, but even taking the Kha'Zix out, that can turn a fight around real quick. Like, and we have seen, you know, there's a reason Zed is a montage-worthy champion in the right hands. Even if we don't see him all that often, you can get a big reward out of it. But C9 are looking for a reward themselves, finding no one at home in the mid tower.
And that's another one of the weaknesses of a Zed is you don't have consistent wave clear. Nice shadow away there, though, from PerkZ, but you can siege on him, right? You can play more aggressively and kind of push up and try to group and take down these turrets if there aren't people in the back pocket of that Zed.
I'm a little surprised that G2 decided to keep PerkZ in the middle lane. Like, with so many of the tier 1 towers now gone, you would think that they would maybe want to move Zven and Mithy into the mid lane to be that primary wave clear and then send Zed off to a side lane. But they want to keep their AD carry near this Rift Herald as a battle.
Trick is flanking here, Smoothie.
Got the hook on just to the Rift Herald, but he gets pulled right in by Mithy. But in comes Contractz to pick up the kill onto Mithy on the backside, and Ray comes charging in, looking for Zven, and it looks like he's just going to be able to do it, but Sven's going to have to hop and flash the wall. As Ray still going forward, looking for the bear trap on the rope, but this time they turn it around with an equalizer, courtesy of Expect. But does G2 have the damage to get a pick off here? It doesn't look like the answer is yes.
No, it's just going to be the 1 for 0, and they actually force a lot of summoners out there from G2, so C9 retreating back towards this Rift Herald, at least going to take away the scuttle, deny that from G2. Close team fight, though. A really nice engage actually coming from the top side here from Ray. They have the flank from Kled coming in at the same time as they're engaged with the arrow, Sneaky and Smoothie going in there, so really well coordinated start to the fight.
And I'm just looking at that mid priority that C9 had all along, because PerkZ was still sitting in mid lane having to deal with this wave. Expect, he joins the fight so long, and I feel like we're just seeing communication issues time and time again from G2, because the bottom lane wanted to go for Rift Herald, the setup wasn't properly there, the rest of the team couldn't help them, and so C9, seeing an opportunity, just charged onto G2 and were able to find kills. And look at all of the vision that C9 were able to gain over G2's jungle. They fully control the top half of G2's map right now.
And they have even more mobility. Remember, just before that fight, they picked up the Cloud Dragon for themselves while G2 was trying to trade for the Rift Herald. And the reaction times from Cloud9, we've seen this tournament, when they want to take a fight, it's just 0 to 60 so fast.
And I mean, it's kind of what Blitz and Kled allow you to do, right? You know, you have the Ashe, you have the Kled ultimate, you have this Blitz who can look for hooks, and you have so many go buttons then. So if that is, you know, one of the strengths that they are trying to utilize, this composition is really going to help to allow them to do that.
Yeah, well, they hit them all at the same time. That usually helps. Now at Contractz, got to talk about this guy, but he's been the one cleaning up in these fights so far. 3-0-0 on the Kha'Zix, and that's another playmaking champion that can pop off.
It certainly is, but I don't think that's really where you want the kills to go. You'd much rather have them on the Orianna or the Ashe, someone who's going to be able to more easily contribute, I think, in these team fights, because kind of sometimes similarly to Zed, Kha'Zix can struggle with the team fight contribution, but C9 is on the Rift Herald. G2 is aware of this, but it looks like they're just making the call to back off as Expect is pushing bot. They're trying to get that mid priority, shoving up with their dual lane, and we'll see where C9 wants to take this, because for now, there's actually no one from G2 in the top side. They could actually go top and drop this immediately, and then try to just do basically a race and go for 2 turrets.
Yeah, I mean, they have the Rift Herald available to them. You can see,
it's exactly what they're going to do.
They sent earlier, thanks to the vision that they set up earlier on, they know that there's no one from G2 in the top half of the map, so it makes it easy for 2 very quick towers. And the best thing that G2 can do is they've sent their AD carry down, and they're going to try and use Expect and his ulti to try and delay C9.
I'm actually really surprised that they just do not decide to drop the Rift Herald there. Going to hold on to it, but they are pushing up mid as well with the Kled, so trying to perhaps look for that juicier target of the mid lane.
And this is something that we're seeing time and time again with this Zed pick. It's so difficult for the Zed to get mid priority against an Orianna because she just walks in, wave clears, leaves, and then C9 have full control of whatever objective they want, and Zed is forced to deal with this minion wave, as now, once again, they go for an engage.
Well, trying to make the play here. Trick was going for, but Ray cutting in to cut them off. And the rest of C9 just retracting back, getting bowled away. Jensen's the one who gets caught on. He pops the barrier, but PerkZ right into the rest of the team. Instantly regrets his decision, but the equalizer's thrown down. Turning and burning onto C9 now. 4 members left alive as Sneaky's already been taken out of the fight. Let's see if G2 can answer back any more objectives on this one.
It looked like such a dangerous engage from G2. Very uncoordinated. Trick goes in, no real follow-up. You're kind of like, what are G2 trying to do? But then that fantastic hook comes out from Mithy onto the primary target. PerkZ just trying to draw attention away from the rest of the team. He was just the bait as Mithy comes in for what the true goal was, to take out Sneaky and take out that mid-tier 1.
Well, they managed to get it for themselves, and here's how it all began with that Rift Herald.
Though, was actually so sick from Sneaky. That's a body slam flash.
Yeah,
he actually
really good.
Flashed away from. Seeing that Righteous Glory be popped, he's expecting it coming in. Really nice reactive flash. Then the cask in from Jensen. Sneaky moves forward to try to support, and Mithy finds him, zeroes him out. The equalizer being layered on top means no chance for him to really flash away.
Yeah, and again, he had no flash from earlier on, thanks to the great play that he did make, but it ended up resulting in his life. And G2, they've come back fighting. The gold's still in favor of C9, but at the very least, G2 have demonstrated that they can bring these fights to C9 as Contractz looks for a kill.
Yep, Trick helps his buddy out, though. PerkZ is able to make his escape, but once again, C9 are never alone in this one. The hook is dodged out, but they're still going to be able to take away the blue buff for themselves. Clearing out that vision, C9 have not slouched at all in making sure they keep this side of the map dark from G2's vision.
Yeah, they do have Ray bot side now pushing up. G2 is going to try to get that mid lane priority, but they will have to be cognizant of the fact that Ray can collapse with this ultimate. Now that G2 is missing, he's going to just have to back off. C9 can look to threaten around the bear, and establishing vision control there is very important for them, and they have a number of pink wards in the area. They really do have full vision control down there, so if too many members from G2 show bot, C9 can look to threaten that Baron.
Trick wanted to go in onto Contractz, might have wished he didn't here. Ashe arrow, he does make
nice sidestep.
Oof. Moved a few pixels over.
Yeah, fancy feat for a large man.
Yeah, that's back-to-back dodges, actually. That probably would have meant his death, the hook and the arrow. If he got hit by either one of those, I think he would have gone down.
He likes to dance with death, our friend Trick.
Yeah.
Usually he ends up not being able to hold his drink at the end of the dance, but right now he's doing a great job as they go for an engage.
All right, going in, and they pull in
waiting
one more time, but Zven is there, and look, here's the collapse. Zven's gonna have to hop backwards, and let's see if G2 have enough left in the tank as PerkZ takes down Sneaky. Zven is opted out of this one, says no thank you very much, and Contractz looking for cleanup duty here. It is carnage across the map, and Expect finds himself out of teammates, or is he, as PerkZ comes in for round 2. Ray's forced to flash away. And at the end of the day, the casualty count is going to be 2 for 1 in favor of Cloud9.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be so much worse for G2, though, but PerkZ got a great pick off onto Sneaky, eliminates the Ashe, and that allowed them to stay alive because if more G2 members went down, that would have been a Baron for C9.
The biggest problem was how quickly Zven was forced out of the fight. Just keep your eyes on the AD carry of G2 because the initial engagement from G2 looked promising. They get onto Sneaky, the main damage leader, but then Zven immediately chunked out by Contractz, and now a lot of the damage from G2 is just gone. They cannot stick through the rest of the fray. Contractz really swung this fight so heavily in the favor of C9.
Yeah, he really did. And I mean, C9 was expecting the engage. They had half their team waiting in the bush. They have Ray prepped with the ultimate to come up. And again, always expecting the shadow. PerkZ delays it nicely. Dodged out, but now Mithy is caught.
Yeah, he can't dodge that Ashe arrow. Just a point-blank range. Contractz is going to pick up another kill for himself. And let's see if that prompts them to try and start off on this Baron. There's a lot of G2 members around.
It's always good to have a ward buddy with you, but if the enemy has more buddies, unfortunately, there's just very little that you can do about it.
That doesn't work out that time, yeah.
So C9, they won't be able to get the Baron, but they will have control around the Baron. And while all this has been happening, Ray's been pushing down
And
bot.
there's no TP on expect, so they actually don't have an answer right now. GT needs to force a play or send someone bot. They're doing neither.
Shirk is face checking. He's going to get pulled in, but he brings Smoothie right back into the team. Unfortunately, no one was able to react in time. And here we go. They're going to try to make a play one more time. It's PerkZ going in onto Jensen, popping back around, and Sneaky is blown up just like that. Zven is going to be able to find his counterpart on that one. 2 big carries down in the blink of an eye.
I actually do not understand at all why C9 is trying to engage when they're getting the bot tier 2 for free. A Kled could just be on this inhibitor very soon after. G2 only had one way to do anything. It was forcing a play, and C9 gave it to him.
You were just talking about it, Azael, the TP advantage that C9 had. They're going to try and take advantage of it now.
He's going to go for it. Half health on the Baron, but it looks like Mithy's going to get pulled right into Smoothie and Contractz, but they're going to take the fight. Forget the Baron. Looking for Contractz there as he hops away to relative safety. PerkZ is looking to take him out. Shut down gold in his pocket as they turn their attention onto Ray. The Baron is still aggroed, and Ray's going to take down the AD carry. Can he do one more with the pocket pistol? It's not going to be enough, and Expect burns him down.
Oh, nice play from Ray to actually stop that Baron, but still, G2 picked up quite a few kills there, and C9 just had no business taking the initial fight. Very poor decision, I think, from them.
I feel like that the play itself looks so promising for G2. If they could just get the kill down onto the jungler, then they're perfect. They're set. The risk of a steal is gone. All they need to do is make sure the Contractz is dead. And they think that here, with Mithy on the front line, with the follow-up from Zven, they can just kill him. But Contractz continuously playing these fights so well enables enough time for G2 to just be scattered. They take so much damage from the Baron. Ray gets a beautiful kill onto Zven, and they're able to buy enough time so that G2 cannot secure the objective.
Yeah, and I mean, Ray getting that kill on Zven is so important to take away the DPS that would have allowed G2 to actually knock down that Baron. In the meantime, C9 picks up the first dragon of the game. Has not really been much attention given over to it this game.
Now, when it's all Cloud Drakes, it's not always the one you want to opt for 100% of the time. But as we're 26 minutes on this clock, the action has definitely been heating up. C9 found themselves in a bit of a dangerous situation, but they still are holding on to that slim gold lead. And they're getting more powerful by the minute. It's
really important to take note now of the items that have been picked up, because in that last fight, Jensen was dead and Sneaky had no flash. But now the Zhonya's has been completed. Jensen is no longer a priority target for PerkZ to try and kill. Sneaky can still be, but as long as Smoothie holds on to the silence from his ultimate, that makes it so much harder for PerkZ to be able to kill this damage dealer as C9 as well.
Yeah, Ray is still threatening. As always, you saw what he was able to do when he was completely isolated from the team to just take out 1 and nearly 2. There's so many weapons on the C9 side for G2 to deal with.
And I mean, now, no TP on Ray. The bot lane is pushing up for G2, so they're going to have to try to deal with that. We'll see when C9 sends someone bot, and really what G2 does eventually to answer, because so far, now that Ray has completed a couple items, they've just been trying to avoid him. They've been trying to group, they've been trying to force fights. I'm not sure when and if they'll feel that PerkZ can actually match him in a side lane.
And now that the Righteous Glory is available as well for Trek, G2 have slightly more reliable ways of forcing fights, given that you have the follow-up from Mithy too. Well, we've seen a number of flash engages from Mithy, but C9, they're just grouping in his push.
Oh, Shockwave! Looking at 4 even more here, as it looks like Trick was going bowling, but it's only going to buy a little bit of time as Contractz gets the kill onto his jungle counterpart.
And that's the jungler going down, so C9 going to go straight over to the Baron. G2 should have expected that engage when no one is answering all the minions at the C9 turret.
And this is just a C9 classic, constantly finding these amazing fights. The question is, will G2 find a great fight of their own?
Equalizer is available, and Trick has TP'd in. They're going to try to contest this, but C9 may finish.
Taking way too much time on that one, looking to see if they can pick off any stragglers here, but Smoothie's already flashed away into the pit. Goes PerkZ looking for Contractz, but he instantly opts out of this one, and Ray is going to flash the wall and pocket pistol for good measure.
All 5 members of C9 walk away with the Baron and walk away with their lives victorious. Picking up a 3,000 gold lead 28 minutes into the game, doing what C9 does so well and getting that advantage over G2.
And it really feels like both teams are just kind of not giving the respect to their opponents, not really playing the map correctly here. You know, as G2, you see 3-4 waves at your opponent's turret. Like, look at the minions in the bot lane. if no one is there, where do you think they are? They're looking for an engage. That's the only reason that they would not be picking that up. And G2 does not show the respect to that. Trick, he's not the one to take the Lantern, so he gets taken out. That means C9 gets the kill, and they get the eventual Baron.
Yeah, it's just so unfortunate for G2, but such good play from the side of C9, utilizing the Fnatic brush against European teams. But
you'd think they would have learned.
You'd think, right? But now they have the Baron, they're sieging onto the towers, they've got Kled off into a side lane, and this time G2 have decided to send Zed down bot, but he's immediately recalling, feeling the need to group up with the rest of his team.
Yeah, he knows that with the Baron buff, the team cannot wave clear that well. I mean, yes, Zven is going to have pretty safe wave clear, pretty consistent wave clear, but it's going to be tricky to actually hold 2 lanes against this Baron.
Yeah. Need to keep that 3-item Tristana alive to keep these waves clear, but it's harder and harder to do with the Baron buff empowerment on. And C9 just staying clustered as a 5-man.
Yeah, they're just trying to actually control this jungle. They need to clear out some of the wards here from G2, check the bushes, clear out that pink so they can rotate back and forth between these 2 lanes and really kind of get an advantage there. When you establish the vision control in your opponent's jungle in a situation like this, Smoothie can be enabled to find the picks as they try to actually rotate around and answer you.
Looks like the tower du jour is still going to be sitting on this top side, since that's the only one outside the base left for G2 eSports. 5 towers Cloud9 have already grabbed on the map, but they're going to turn their attention once again to mid, trying to drag G2 around as the Baron buff still has a minute and a half left. It's going to be a short hop for Zven, but just out of range of C9 going all in.
So C9, they're very hesitant to try and commit to a tower. They're very wary of the possibility of the expect ultimate, the trick barrel, the hook from Mithy. They're just playing very reserved, and they're waiting for this big minion wave down the bottom lane to catch up to the towers so they can start pressuring onto all 3 lanes. But with the Man and Drake spawning in a minute, perhaps C9, they're just going to take the gold advantage that they gain from the Baron and then use that to net themselves another Drake.
And it does kind of speak of some of the confidence that they do have moving forward into the late game. They're not actually feeling like they have to force anything, not feeling that they have to really look too heavily for any of these fights. But the question is, are they correct, right? I mean, Zven is getting very, very strong on the Tristana, and when he completes his next item, if he goes for something like a Mercurial, if he's worried about the Ashe arrow, he could also go the route of a Bloodthirster or whatever. But I mean, when you're sitting on 4 or 5 items as Tristana, you can win these team fights almost solo.
Absolutely, and how much is that worth compared to what C9 have the later this game goes? You have an Orianna, you have a fed Kha'Zix, you have an Ashe who is not going to dish out a small amount of damage either.
It just comes down to who can play the team fights better, right? Who can actually have the biggest impact? Is it the Blitzcrank that hooks into carry, or is it the Thresh that connects, or the Gragas body slam that knocks in sneaky? It's all going to come down to play and execution in these final team fights.
And while the game is slower, it just makes it so much more tense as well, because you know that that climactic team fight is coming. You know that that one person is going to get hooked in, or that person's going to fail their ulti, or there are just so many small factors that can so rapidly swift the favor of a team fight.
Oh yeah, this is the stealth part of the action movie where the heroes are kind of moving in before the big final confrontation. We're not quite at the end yet, Betty.
Well, and it's exactly how this previous game ended, right? When C9 played G2 last time, Sneaky was an extremely sped Tristana. It looked like they had the game in the bag, and then Mithy turned the game on its head with one Blitzcrank hook that took out Sneaky, that got them the Elder into a Baron, into 2 inhibitors. So you know that these big plays can and will change the course of the game.
Yeah, and the shoe's on the other foot as far as the champion choices go, right? Because now Zven's got the Tristana and Smoothie's got the Blitzcrank. So we'll see if history repeats itself or we're rewriting those books.
And it's a big deal as well when you're trying to make it into the final, which I imagine C9 want to do for both teams really, because losing a game here, it does make it very difficult. To remember, you're competing with the other teams from your region to make it to the best of 5, not against the other teams, right? So being able to pick up wins here means that you get yourself more points and you better set yourself up when trying to make it to that best of 5.
And for G2, all the European teams are actually tied at 1 and 2 right now, I do believe. So, there certainly is an opportunity for them to get to the finals and really kind of redeem themselves within the course of this event. They're not happy with their performance. You talked about that. Mithy, talking about their expectations for themselves are much higher, and they still have the opportunity to bounce back and really show what they can do, because Saturday we will have a best of 5, and that is going to be what decides everything.
Yes.
Well, they got to get to that point first, and the way the European teams overall are playing, yes, it just hasn't been up to par from the expectations, but that just means it's so much closer, right? One game can mean all the difference. So obviously every game counts, but when you're looking at the way the European teams have been playing right now, one small improvement can really just mean the world. And for Cloud9, of course, they've got to do better than TSM is at the moment. That's going to be a little tougher ask, it would seem. But at the moment, they are set up in this lead if they can just keep it going.
Yep, and G2 now really just kind of trying to reestablish vision control, trying to extend their borders where it's safe to actually move out, find out where this Blitzcrank is, where the Ashe is, and where the C9 engage can come from. And for Ray, they're trying to establish vision for him so he can actually split push more aggressively, start to threaten for these kills, start to threaten for the turrets, because you can't really go for many plays until you know where the rest of the team is at.
Yeah, things are very difficult for G2 to really move out onto the map right now. Especially with Baron spawning in about 40 seconds. This is going to be the big swing point for C9, because with that objective, with only base towers left aside from that tier 2 in the top, C9 have full map control, and this Baron will enable them to just siege into the rest of the base, especially with the lack of, or the difficulty that G2 will have as they get spread out across the map thanks to Ray sitting on those side lanes.
And they just don't have a whole lot of vision, so for G2, it's ever risky to just try and check into it.
Are they doing it again? Are they really doing it again?
He's keeping a little close to the other side, but at least they're at 5 members. Are they going to face check all in?
They're pinging it.
Oh,
they
boy.
know. They have to know. G2, come on. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice.
Oh, he gets got back in. Insta-flashed out, but he's going to go right back once more. Throws the big barrel out, and this time, the bait and switch is a takedown. Smoothie expect getting the kill credit on that one, and they turn over to Ray, who's going to charge and gets bumped in on by PerkZ. Turns his attention right over to Sneaky. Has to pop out. Contractz looking for a deletion around the side. Gets a shutdown onto PerkZ. Ray going low, but it's going to be another. The double kill onto Zven, and it looks like that bug's going to happen.
He has the resets here. It's a level 16 Kha'Zix. So many kills on Contractz, and he saves this fight, picking up 2. C9 look for the re-engage, can't find it.
And Contractz, time and time again, is keeping these fights going in the favor of Cloud9. The teleport is coming
they're going for the Baron.
They're going for that objective.
Trick is up. He has no flash, but he does have
no
vision.
vision.
He'd be the hero, though.
They can't even see it at all. They don't know if it's even going down. Trick wandering over now, but it's already gone. The Kha'Zix isolation damage so huge there. And Contractz is really putting the team on the back.
It looked like such a good fight for Trick, because he gets hooked in, right? You think this is bad, but then he just goes to the re-engage. The entire C9 team gets split up with Blitz gone and a free access for PerkZ onto the back line. You think it's done, but then look at Contractz.
Yeah, Contractz finding a way back in. He waits by the shadow. PerkZ goes right back to it. He's able to follow after him. They actually get the shutdown. He has the leap reset going in onto Zven, just deletes him with all the gold he has in this fight. And not only did this save that team fight, it gets them the Baron. He has a GA. This Kha'Zix is a monster.
Yeah, such a good pick for him.
Participated in 10 out of the 12 kills C9 have had. And now, yeah, he's going to be even harder to squish. So this is really, really rough for G2, losing out on yet another Baron. And we'll see if they can push back the aggression. It's going to be difficult.
So much of it is really on Zven. I mean, Zven is the super strong member for G2. The rest of the team is kind of struggling a bit in comparison to their counterparts. I mean, the Kha'Zix is massive. Jensen is a full item ahead of PerkZ, so that is a problem. So much of the gold, though, on Zven, and he has the ability to carry these team fights if they can have the proper setup, if they can keep him safe, from Ray and Contractz and these guys who are trying to dive him and take him out.
Absolutely, and we saw what happened with Zven yesterday on that Xayah against Cloud9. Had a pretty solid game overall, but remember, that was a long one, 48 minutes plus. This time on the Tristana, he's hoping to do a little bit more, and he's going to need to pull out a Herculean effort to make it done.
C9 also stocking up on these GAs, will make their kind of one-fight punch that much more powerful. They have one on both the Ashe and the Kha'Zix, so it's almost like that 7-man team fight that you can expend.
How do you beat Burst? Come back to life.
There you go.
Yeah. Tower's going down pretty easily, though, even with the rest of the minions there. It looks like C9 can clear that one away.
And Ray pushing mid. He's threatening the other inhibitor turret right there. Already onto it, knocking that down very quickly. So now the C9 squad in the bot lane just have to be a bit careful. But Zven is very low.
Teleport. Contractz coming in for the kill. Able to finish the job off, turning his attention over to Trick, but Sneaky beats him to the punch. He's still getting the resets. Hops, skips, jumps, looking to chase G2 all the way back to their own fountains. He's finally going to fall, but that's just a GA. As he comes right back on up, he can't help but thinking that this one is all over but the crying.
And it was that one big team fight that decided it all, and it was Contractz that gets it for C9. They get the big fight, they're gonna get the win.
Absolutely, and at the end of it, G2 make one last feint of resistance, but with only the Nexus left remaining, just hit it, and it's Contractz kills.
Contractz with such an incredible game here against G2. 10, 1, and 2 on the Kha'Zix. Just ridiculous in the late game. And I was kind of talking about how I feel like it's very difficult for Kha'Zix in these late game team fights to really get involved. But Contractz found the right opportunities. You know, he was so over leveled, so much gold on his character that he's able to take down people incredibly fast, hit those resets, and carry a lot of the fights.
Yeah, I mean, there were more hit jobs on him than in a Tarantino movie. He was going all over the place this time. So well played by him. But the whole C9 team really stepped it up on the objective game.
And you want to, like, in a lot of these fights, constantly you saw Zven, like, always being low health, never really being able to get the damage out that you would expect from this Tristana, but it's just because of the pressure that this Kled and the Kha'Zix were always throwing onto him. Every time he tried to go in, those two were just diving onto his face, and they were saying, you're going to use your rocket jump out. And then once you're out, we don't care what you do, because now G2 have no damage left. Zed is the only reliable damage source, and he's only going to be a threat to one target. And we have Kled, we have Kha'Zix, we have Ori, we have Ashe. We have so many tools in our kit that we are more than prepared to handle whatever you throw at us.
And it kind of was a bit strange, and although I think PerkZ played the Zed well, that you never really saw him in the side lane, never really saw him going for the split push, and you know, perhaps just not feeling like he can actually deal with the Kled in the 1v1, you know, with the dismount, kind of absorbing some of the damage from the death mark and things like this. He was not able to kind of get to that split push win condition. He was forced into team fights where I think it's much more difficult for the Zed to be effective.
Yeah, I feel like he kind of missed that window where he could go roving around the map and try to pick off targets for a couple of reasons, right? You had Contractz kind of almost taking that role on the other side early on because he was fed a couple of kills. You had C9 slowing down that game. He was locked into mid lane, otherwise they were going to lose that tower. He didn't really seem to have many options with the Zed.
Yeah, but as you were saying, I still think he played it as well as he could have. Like, I think that the pick was definitely had a lot of risk associated with it, and he was able to get a lot of big kills that did net some good fights in favor of G2, but it just culminated in that big fight at the very end, that one Baron, because if G2 wins that fight, they get the Baron, suddenly they have a 4-item Tristana with the Baron buff sitting on the great. And like, things are looking very positive for G2, and like, that game could have swung so very quickly in their favor, but this time round, it went in the favor of C9. They now hold a 1-1 record, and NA are looking very good on day 2 of this tournament.
Absolutely. So, Cloud9 defeated G2 for the EU LCS here in this game. Let's go ahead and head over to QuickShot for a word with their AD carry.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm joined here by Sneaky. First of all, congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
A lot of local support. There's Cloud9 Sneaky Zaya cosplay in the audience. I don't know if you've seen that girl yet. Are you surprised by the support here of the EU fans?
You know, actually, I kind of realized with the streaming schedule I have, it's like so late at night that it's good for EU. So people are like, yeah, you know, we're a bunch of your fans here. You have a bunch of support, Sneaky. So it feels good.
That's really cool. It's great to hear the cheering, of course. Not great to see the European teams lose as an EU caster, but I have to give you a lot of credit for some good games. 2 wins, 2 losses now for Cloud9. That game, Contractz was just popping off. Talk to me about how and why you guys were able to bounce back against G2.
Well, we actually lost in a really weird way against Unicorns. Like, we were in control of the game, we were up 2k gold, and then I die, Smoothie dies, they get Baron, oh, it's a good game. So I don't even know if I call it a bounce back, because like we had such a weird game, and I've never even lost like that before, honestly, against Unicorns. But, I mean, we've been having really weird games overall. Like, we get a little behind, we give up advantages randomly. But Contractz, yeah, he had 10 kills, he was playing pretty well.
Yeah, definitely played pretty well. Here in Europe, we call those clown fiestas. Welcome to EU, it seems. Okay, so TSM currently 3-0. They're the NA leaders. They would need to lose a bunch of games in order for Cloud9 or Phoenix One to make finals. Do you think there's any possibility of not TSM making the final and representing North America?
Yeah, I mean, we beat TSM before we came here, so it's definitely possible. I think if they win even another game, then we're still okay. But if they win 2 more, it's over. So
will Unicorns beat TSM at the end of the day?
Oof.
I mean, they beat you, so come on, 2-0 on the day?
I mean, you know, there's hope for them winning so that we can play in finals, but it's also okay that TSM wins and goes 6-0. I don't know.
Okay, we'll find out. Sneaky, congratulations on the win. We'll see you again tomorrow. For now, we're going to head back to the analyst desk to wrap up the games.
Thank you very much, QuickShot. Always fantastic to hear from Sneaky, who thinks, well, they are still in the race, and they definitely are still in the race, and they have taken down G2 as well and evened out that record at least. A very interesting game again. You guys said it was going to be a super slow one. However, yeah, it was a bit near the end, but there was more action than anticipated, and you had a thing or two to say about the draft. What do we make of the Zed, and what do we make of the Orianna first pick? Probably.
I mean, I think NA has already kind of showed its preference. If Syndra LeBlanc's banned, they're going to take Ori.
Especially Jensen.
Yeah, especially
Loves
Jensen.
Orianna.
I actually don't really mind this Zed pick in this draft. I mean, it's not as late game as I was expecting, but I think it fits pretty well with the Rumble, and then you have a good target in killing Ashe late game as Zed. So you don't even have to like only kill mid laner. So I think it's actually, this is actually a draft like, I think makes sense for G2.
Because earlier we were talking about,
Yeah.
well, this was off air, about what Zed can do and how he should be played. So maybe that's how we'll look at this game. Well, 'cause
Yeah.
it definitely didn't win.
We also think Lucian probably would have been better. It's
He's
just
a
that
bit scared of that right now,
PerkZ is
maybe.
really good at Zed, right? And he hasn't had the best games on Lucian, so I could still see why they do it. And he actually pulled off some good plays in it. It's just they weren't making enough plays, and they kept getting hit by Orianna shockwaves when he wasn't doing anything creative. He was
And
leaving the ball on a minion wave.
They kept getting hit by Contractz over and over. He had a great game on Kha'Zix. The first time we saw Kha'Zix in this tournament. And were you impressed, Trashy?
I was for sure. I think I'm a bit surprised actually we haven't seen that much Kha'Zix because I actually think the champion is pretty good right now. In this case, it's a good pick, especially because Zed is in the game. It's good against Zed. It's also good against killing Rumble on side and stuff. So he has a lot of options of picking targets, and we can see in the team fights he was just crushing it.
Yeah, Contractz and Ray made really good dive buddies in this game. Ray always makes it to the back line. Kha'Zix can jump real far. He's also going to be able to get him. So they made Zven's life really difficult, even though he's on a pretty mobile AD carry pick.
And we could see like the team fights were super explosive, and that is mainly due to the pick and ban phase because we have champs like Kled, we have Zed, we have Rumble. The team fights are going to be explosive, and it just came down to execution in the fights, and I think C9 were playing the fights better.
C9 were playing the fights better. I think that's easy to say. You did mention Kled as well. So much Kled and so good even when he gets put behind in lane. Should just be a top pick ban priority.
Yeah, Probably and I were talking about this. Something's up with Kled.
Something's up.
Because he's
Something's weird.
losing lane, he's going down 0-2 or 0-3, and then all the time he's just one-shotting someone in the backside. I think he's sneakily one of those champions who's becoming higher priority. It's being last picked, even though it seems like they're willing to play it into any matchup.
I mean, I think again, you don't really want to blind pick this. Maybe this has some like hard counters that's preventing it from being blind picked, but picking it into matchups that don't do well, like it's very easy to camp it, and you saw like this game he's dying like twice and stuff like that. But eventually it just gets to the point where he gets enough items and he can just, the person he targets is gonna die.
Is it one of those cases where it's just a pick that needed some time because you need to be very good on it? It was always strong and good in those matchups, but now it's been out for a long time. They should be great at it now.
I mean, it has been out for a long time, and I think
people are slow.
we have seen it in EU too. I know my beloved
Wonders
top laner likes to pick two.
Oh yeah. So actually it's been out for a while. So it took a really long time for people to get
No,
used to
I
it.
think people know how it works and how to play it. I don't think that's a problem. I just think in this situation it's a good pick against Rumble because later on in the game you can win on side lane. And I also think that against the set, I'm not 100% sure, but I would assume that the Kled can win against set on side too. So suddenly you have a pick that can win side lane against all the champions on the opposite side. So I think it was just a good pick in this situation.
Yeah, see, that's why I kind of like what NA's been doing with it, because I mean, it's been in EU a little bit, but mostly it's been in Apex. And yeah, even if they win side lane, they don't really go side lane with it. They kind of just group and then they ult. And I think that's catching a lot of teams by surprise still. Is like, oh my god, Kled's ulting, we're getting engaged on. Like, by now it should be, they have Kled, like, we need to form a team fight or be ready for this kind of pick.
One thing we have to praise the NA teams for generally in this tournament is they seem like the ones willing to force the fights first. And somehow it always seems like it's working out for them when they're forcing the fights first. So I think EU teams maybe need to show some more aggression on the Rift and be willing to force the fights first.
It's supposed to be the other way around,
with
but
the
it's not the
champion
case.
presence a little bit though as well, right? We mentioned all three of the NA teams have been doing a lot of Kled. We've seen Doublelift and Sneaky on Ashe, right? They're playing more proactive, initiating champions, and they're shutting down any type of 1-3-1 a European teams can be thrown at them, at least so far, and it's one of the reasons they've been so successful.
At least so far, and that is why they are ahead right now, and maybe that increases in our next match because Fnatic and Phoenix One are looking for a victory in their fight for a spot in the final. We'll be right back after a short break.
Faker, only team to beat Mikey.
expect with the bait on, and in comes the Fat Man, flash body slam, and Ray is in trouble. He has to burn his own flash. Still gets hit by the barrel as he hops away to relative safety. PerkZ is looking to take him out. Shut down gold in his pocket as they turn their attention onto Ray. The Baron is still aggroed, and Ray's going to take down the AD carry. Can he do one more with the pocket pistol? It's not going to be enough. Right over to Sneaky, has to pop out. Contractz looking for a deletion around the side. Gets a shutdown onto PerkZ. Ray going low. It's going to be another. The double kill onto Zven.
Be careful, but Zven is very low.
Teleport. Contractz coming in for the kill.
Kha'Zix no flash.
And at the end of it, G2 make one last feint of resistance, but with only the Nexus left remaining, just hit it, and it's Contractz kills.